Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, welcome to the live session at EPCET, the exclusive live session planned for the first year students of 23rd batch of East Point College of Engineering and Technology. I feel proud and privileged in welcoming you all to this live session, and my special welcome to today's eminent speaker, Dr. Anindita Bhattacharya. I'd like to introduce the speaker of the day. She is currently teaching psychology at Ajim Premji University since last 7 years. Madam has also coordinated mental health and well-being center, namely Mindspace at School of Art and Science, APU. She is a licensed clinical psychologist and has been working in the field for more than a decade. She received her PhD degree in clinical psychology from Nimans, Bangalore. Her area of interest include promotion and prevention of mental health, youth development, intentional self-development, and personal growth processes in youth. With this brief introduction, Madam, I formally invite you and welcome you to this session on importance of self-care and stress management. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Dhananjay, and thank you, East Point College of Engineering and Technology, for inviting me here for the induction sessions. Hello, first years. Very happy and hopefully happy and a safe new year to all of you. Today, I would like to talk about a very important topic, and all of you, I'm sure, can relate to a topic like that, which is about how do we take care of ourselves. So, importance of self care, and how do we manage stress. So, I want to show you people a few slides on that, and maybe tell you a little bit more about it. Professor Dhananjay, can I share my screen?
Yes,
You're
ma'am. Share the screen.
okay. One second.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
this is visible. Okay. So I want to talk about why do we need to talk more about being stressed, and I'm sure all of you know why it's important, because in the last 1 year, especially after the coronavirus situation, a lot of things have changed in our lives, and we have realized how important mental health has become in our lives. So today's session is going to be exactly on that. And I'm going to basically cover three important things. One is, what is stress, right? So how do we define it? Can we really define stress? Because it seems like such a complicated construct. So what really is stress? How does it affect us physically, psychologically? Can you people look at certain very clear indicators and say, clearly I'm stressed and now I need help, or I need to take care of myself? So what could be some of the signs and symptoms of, feeling stressed? And how do you cope with it? So how can we best cope with something like stress? So I'm going to cover these three things in today's session. I want you people to just quickly look at this quote by a neuroendocrinologist named Robert Sapolsky. And he has done some amazing research in the area of stress, which is mostly on wild baboons and rats. But I really like this quote because he says that for almost 99% of the beasts, and he means all the animals possible, including humans on this planet, stress is about 3 minutes of screaming in terror, after which it's either over or you die, right? So in the wild, imagine a deer running. So stress for a wild animal looks more like panic, getting away from a predator, but it lasts for a few seconds and then it's over. So most of the time, stress is acute for animals. But when it comes to human beings, we have created wonderful ways of feeling stressed, right? So We have a lot of different abstract things which makes us worry. It could be a traffic jam. It could be other things happening around us which make us stressed. So why stress about stress, right? Why do we need to start talking about it so much? Why do we need to start thinking about stress? Stress has been a very, very important and essential part of our lives. If you look at our lives from an evolutionary perspective, we need stress to survive. Imagine if you are, going somewhere and you suddenly encounter a snake. You need to be stressed to either, fight with what you're encountering or escape from the situation, right? So stress has always been very, very useful in making us survive. But recently, what we are also observing is that a lot of different abstract things make us stressed. And we may also take stress in a very chronic way. So it's not just acute for us, but we can feel stressed about something for a long period of time. And when it's for a very long period of time, it can really harm us physically and psychologically. So, how is stress defined? There are various different kinds of definitions of stress, and in fact, there are constant debates and controversies around how do we define stress? Is it a stimulus? Is it a stressor which we encounter in the environment, like a promotion or a transition? Like all of you are transitioning from school to college. So, is it the stressor which makes you stressed? Or should the definition be more about how our body responds to it? So is it that our body responds to stress in a particular way, like physiological reaction or psychological reaction to it? And some other researchers talk about how stress is also about how do we make sense of the situation. So stress arises when there is a combination of internal and external pressures. External pressures could be, financial constraints. It could be a major transition, like what I mentioned. It could be an upcoming exam, or it could be an internal pressure, which could be more about your own emotions, which could be about, how certain days in a month you don't feel up to it, your energy levels are low, and you realize that the demands made by the environment around you exceeds the resources you have to cope with the situation. And that's when you start feeling stressed. If you feel that an upcoming exam is not that difficult, you won't feel stressed, right? But when you realize that the exam demands you to prepare in a particular way and you don't feel prepared, that's when we start feeling stressed. Is all stress bad? No, not really. Because imagine if you have an exam and you don't stress about it at all, what will happen, right? You will you will not be well prepared to deal with it. So if we look at a graph of our performance versus stress, it's an inverted U-shaped curve. So if we have very little stress, then our performance again goes down because you don't want to prepare, you don't give it enough importance. You need an optimal amount of stress to perform well. And finally, you reach a point where the stress becomes so much that again your performance goes down. So, good stress, any good stress, for example, you get a promotion or you get married, you get a new job, is stressful, but it's you stress. It's a good stress. But the stress which causes problems, which causes physiological reactions which are difficult to manage, is considered as distress. But from what you people may have heard about stress, you mostly hear about distress and not really eustress. So, like I was telling you people about various kinds of definitions and theories of stress, there's one commonly recognized definition of stress, which is the transactional model of stress. It says that there are three important components involved. One is the situation you encounter. The second is how do you appraise the situation? Do you see it as a challenge? So, an upcoming presentation on or an assignment, do I see it as a challenge for me to grow and do well? I see it as a learning situation, or do I see it as a threat? Do I feel like everyone will judge me? Everyone will, make comments on how I have presented. So, First is the situation, second is how do we look at that situation, how do we appraise it, and the third is, do I have enough resources to meet the demands of the situation? So, have I practiced enough number of times for the presentation? If I have, I won't be that stressed because I know I have the resources to do well in a situation like this. If I feel I'm not that well prepared or I couldn't get time to practice, then my resources won't meet the demands of the situation. So, there are these three important components of stress. Why is it important to talk about stress in a college atmosphere? Because this is a time of transition for you people. I'm sure college experience have been very difficult and very different because now you are, studying at a time when everything has gone online. But that can bring its own kind of stress, right? And the kind of experience you may have expected from college life, a normal life where you go to a college physically, you make friends, you participate in clubs, all that has changed. But college in general is a time of transition and it creates a lot of different kinds of stresses in a person's life. Even if you were going physically, um, um, a lot of things change from when you move from a school life to a college life. The structure changes. You may have to be more self motivated to learn courses. You may have to push yourself. Your faculty may not, spoon feed you. So it's a time of transition, and this transition creates stress in a lot of people. So there are some studies which show that almost 30% of college students report that they feel overwhelmed a great deal of time. In fact, when I was doing my PhD, I did a survey of 800 students across Bangalore, where I gave them a scale from, where they had to mark how stressed they were from a scale of 0 to 10. And I realized almost 35% of students marked themselves beyond like 7. So that's how stressed they were at that point of time. And 35% is a huge number, right? It's also seen that most of common mental health disorders like depression, anxiety, even schizophrenia have an early onset. So they usually start before the age of 25. So between the age of 15 to 25 is when a lot of mental health disorders also start. And if they are detected early, they are identified early, then a person will get treatment early, and that goes a long way into recovery. But if they are not identified early, then there could be other complications later on. So this is also a time in our life when we have to be careful because a lot of things can trigger, people who are especially vulnerable, who have a family history of mental health disorders, may find it difficult to cope up with the demands of college life. So that's why college life, it's important to talk about stress. Then there are increased number of suicide during this period. I don't know if some of you have read, news reports. I was reading one news report which spoke about how every day almost 28 students commit suicide, which is a huge number. So students from the age group of 19 to 29, in fact, the most number of suicides are committed during this age. So, which is again a huge number, and one has to be very careful, learn how to deal with stress because it's a vulnerable stage. Also, it's been seen that there are a lot of barriers to seeking help, even if you're feeling very overwhelmed. Like if 10% of students are facing mental health disorders, just one person would actually go and seek help from a professional, which could be because of stigma attached to it. People don't want to go and meet a mental health professional, or may feel that they're strong enough. Why do they need to seek help? They should deal with their problems on their own. So there are a lot of barriers to seek help, which can again make college a very difficult period. So what really happens to us when we are stressed? So how does our body react, right? It's a very interesting way. If you people look at it, when you're really stressed, you will see that your hands go cold, right? So the blood supply goes to the larger muscles of the body, so that you can either fight or escape from the situation. So what is the mechanism behind it? Your brain basically processes the information around you, and if it feels that something is very threatening, The hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain which is mainly involved in maintaining homeostasis of the body, it then gives a signal to the pituitary gland, which gives a signal to the adrenal gland, which is right above your kidneys, which releases the stress hormone called cortisol. And when cortisol is released in your bloodstream, basically your body is geared to act, either to fight or to escape from the situation. So you start hyperventilating because you have to breathe more to get more oxygen into your lungs so that the heart can pump faster, provide oxygen to the various part of our bodies. So you will notice all these symptoms of stress, where we breathe, our heartbeat goes up, we breathe a lot more, our hands go cold because the blood is sent to other parts of the body which need to make a decision to either run or fight with the situation. Your digestive system slows down because you don't need to digest at that time, but you need to act. So there are physiological responses to stress. And on a short term basis, you need that sort of a response to survive, right? It's an emergency reaction through activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So it allows us to more effectively cope with stressful situations. But what happens when this exposure lasts for a longer time? What if the stress becomes chronic? Then it becomes a problem, right? Because your blood vessels are dilated so that more blood could flow through them. Your heart is pumping really fast. But imagine a machine which is constantly running, 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 running. What will happen? After a point of time, it will get exhausted, right? So there are breakdowns in various organs, the immunity is compromised when stress becomes extremely chronic because it can't keep acting on things, right? So the continued exposure could lead to various kinds of consequences. So if you just look at this graph, you will see that the initial reaction of our body is the alarm reaction, where the body tries to cope with stress. It resists. So you get a bad grade in your exam. You immediately get really worried because you have to do well. So you may meet with the professor, you may go to the library, figure out what you need to do. You resist, you create ways to deal with the situation. But after a point of time, if you realize no matter how much you study, you're still not able to get good grades, you may reach a phase of exhaustion because which can cause illness because your coping is inadequate. You're not able to cope with the situation anymore. So Hans Selye was again an endocrinologist who spoke about the general adaptation syndrome or gas, which happens when there is a lot of stress. Some of you may be thinking, these are physiological responses, but what happened to us psychologically? Psychologically, we find it difficult to cope. So you may feel everything around you in the environment as threatening. Your reasoning can become clouded. So a minor criticism by somebody, a friend, may make you feel that I'm not good enough. Why did he criticize? Was I that bad? Did I not live up to my expectations? What people expected from me? And at highest levels of stress, emotional responses can also be so extreme that sometimes people are unable to act at all. So it can lead to emotional insulation where you don't feel anything because the stress is so much that you can't feel happiness, you can't feel sadness, you just feel numb. So people under a lot of stress also become less able to deal with new stresses. So when you keep encountering one stress after the other, you may break down very fast. Um, and if you don't intervene or you don't try to manage stress like this, it could contribute to other mental health problems like depression, anxiety. You may have difficulty with relationships. Some of us may also, use some avoidant coping strategies like maybe taking more alcohol or drugs or smoking more because we want to escape this stressful situation. But in the long run, again, because they are a temporary solution, they don't really help you cope with the stress. The stress still remains, even if you try these kind of strategies. Sometimes there could also be medical consequences, like many people have irritable bowel syndrome. They may have persistent stress related headaches or heart issues later on. So, how do you know that you're stressed? What are the common signs of, being stressed? So, you will notice that there are physical symptoms, there are psychological symptoms, there are cognitive symptoms. When I say physical symptoms, I mean that if you're really stressed and you see that the environment is not letting you relax, you're feeling overwhelmed. Some of the physical symptoms you may notice is that your frequency of headaches go up. You may complain of headaches. Your immunity may be compromised, so you get more cold, or you may be facing fever or minor illnesses. You may be constantly complaining about muscle aches or tightness. You may feel very rigid. You may feel like your muscles are aching. You may feel extremely fatigued. There may be difficulties to fall asleep. There could be increased heart rate. Sometimes you may also have a panic attack because thinking about a situation can make you hyperventilate, can make you feel like you may get a heart attack or you'll die. So these kind of symptoms are physical symptoms of stress. What are the emotional symptoms? You may observe that you are more you're easily getting angry or frustrated when you're stressed. You're more irritable than usual. So usually, if you're not a person who gets irritated, you will realize that when you're stressed, you get more irritable, you're more disorganized. You may feel that you don't have time for anything, so you may constantly feel like there is a time pressure, that you don't have time for finishing your assignments, you don't have time for socializing, you don't have time for your hobbies. You may find it difficult to complete things on time, or there could also be a feeling of hopelessness in coping with life. So you may notice some of these emotional symptoms as well. Some of the cognitive symptoms you may notice is that you tend to forget things easily. You may not remember what was being taught. You may find it difficult to focus in class. You may be worrying a lot about what is happening, or if you have an exam or an assignment, you may spend more time worrying about what will be the consequence rather than actually preparing. You may find it difficult to process information. If people are telling you something, you may feel a little lost and disoriented. You may also catch yourself telling yourself negative self-critical statements like you're no good, you can't deal with it. Everybody feels that you're a loser, you can't deal with things properly, right? So if you notice any of these symptoms and you realize that it's really affecting your daily functioning, then it's a cause of concern, right? That's when you know that you are stressed. If other people are telling you that you've changed from how you were earlier, then again it's a warning sign. Means you need to start taking care of yourself. If it's extremely severe, all these symptoms last for more than 7 days or 14 days, and the intensity is a lot, you can't function at all, you may have to consult a mental health professional as well. So I'm sure now you're wondering, how do you cope with stress? Because stress is a part of our lives, right? I mean, uh, uh, what will life be if we didn't have stress? Because every day there will be something which makes you, worried. And this coronavirus situation is not making things any easier because the goalpost keeps changing. There's no sense of resolution. We don't know when things will finally become normal. So if there is a vaccine, then we hear that there is a new strain of COVID. So, with things being so uncertain, how do you cope with this kind of a stress? So, there are these very interesting research done by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who's a neuroendocrinologist in Stanford University, and I quoted him earlier. He says that having a predictive information usually reduces stress. So, he's done these studies on lab rats where when a lab rat is given a shock, for example, and if the cortisol levels are measured, remember cortisol was the stress hormone I was talking about. If the rat knows that there is an indicator like a light, which indicates that there'll be electric shock, then the stress levels are not as much. compared to rats who don't have a sense of prediction, who don't know when they'll get the shock. So he says that um, knowing when a particular date for an exam is, or knowing when something is going to happen, gives us an opportunity to prepare for it, and it allows for more control, so that we feel less stressed. So, can you plan for things? Usually, planning helps because you feel more in control of the situation. Then having an outlet for dealing with stress. If you are feeling extremely stressed, can you take out the stress in some form, like exercise or relaxation or talking to a friend, writing a journal? All these different ways help you in managing the stress and paying attention to which one work best for you. Then having a positive outlook, it's been seen that and by positive outlook I don't mean unrealistically being positive. It's not happyology that you always feel happy, but just to appreciate what are the good things which are there in our lives, just inculcating a sense of gratitude for things, could be a good way to become more naturally optimistic. There are some people who are naturally optimistic, but for others who tend to worry a lot, maybe just spending some time to appreciate the good things which are there in life could be one way to feel less stressed. And fourth thing which he mentioned was connection with others, and I'll keep repeating this. That social support from others is extremely important to keep your stress levels down. So, what are the various strategies we use for coping with stress? Coping is typically when we try to control, reduce, or learn strategies to tolerate threatening situation which lead to stress. And there are two main categories of positive coping, a coping which helps us. One is emotion focused coping. So, what happens in emotion focused coping is that when you realize that a particular situation is completely out of your control, for example, like the current COVID situation, or if your parents are separated, or if you are going through a breakup, when you realize that there's nothing much which can be done, we try to manage our emotions about the situation. One could be by talking to other people, by asking for sympathy or asking for connection with others, or trying to do something which makes us feel better, which could be exercising, which could be anything else. That is emotion focused coping. But when you realize that you can do something about the situation, it's not that out of control. We also use something called as the problem focus coping, where you try to modify the stressful problem or the source of stress. If you realize that you can't study on your own for an assignment, one way of problem focused coping would be to maybe create small groups. Maybe create a group study which helps you. So you basically try to deal with the problem and change, modify, look at strategies which will modify the situation to deal with it better. Some less successful strategies are avoidant coping. So, like I was mentioning earlier, smoking or getting addicted to something like a video game or to other things, um, having excessive alcohol or constantly partying, trying to distract yourself could be ways of avoidant coping, but they are not very useful in the long run because they're usually temporary in nature. Once you go back to your place, once you go back to doing what you were supposed to do, you feel stressed again, right? So I'm going to talk about a few coping resources which you can develop, and some of you may feel that some of these strategies work for you. All of these strategies may not work for all of you, but you can choose. The idea is that you have a range of resources to help you, and you choose strategies based on the situation and your individual preference. So I'm just going to talk about a few strategies. You can see what could be useful for you and what you can take away from here. So some of the cognitive strategies, cognitive means, related to thought or thinking, could be reframing. So many a times, the way we talk to ourselves could be extremely negative. For example, I may say, I have to prepare for that difficult exam. Can you reframe that sentence? Can you talk about what is it that you exactly supposed to do? So, can I prepare for this chemistry exam? Maybe divide it into parts, rather than telling yourself that, can I prepare for the difficult exam? Because the term difficult again creates a mental block. So, how do you reframe the way you talk to yourself and being more aware of, the self critical things which you tell yourself? Challenging negative thinking. So many times negative thoughts come automatically. Can you challenge those? Do you really have evidence for it? Because remember, your thoughts are not equivalent to reality. We shouldn't fuse thoughts with reality. Thoughts are just thoughts. So I may feel that I was terrible in a presentation. Doesn't mean that I was actually terrible. It's possible that I was okay, I was not very good. But in my head, I may keep thinking that I was terrible. So, do I have evidence for it? Can I ask other people for feedback on what I can do to improve? So, it's important to challenge negative thinking. It's also important to engage in affirmative self talks. So, you will see that, most of the time we tell ourselves, you couldn't do with this, but we hardly praise ourselves or give us reinforcement when we do really well in something. So sometimes just telling us ourselves realistic affirmative things help. You don't have to tell yourself that you were the best, but just saying that you were good, you could have been better, or saying that if you really prepare well, you will do fine in this presentation are examples of positive self-talk. Counting sometimes helps. If you're feeling very anxious, just counting brings your attention to doing something other than worrying. So sometimes counting from 1 to 10 helps. Also, doing a cost benefit analysis. Is this self talk helping me? I'm telling myself, you will suck in this. You won't do well in a presentation. Is it really helping me, this self talk? So just a cost benefit analysis of how am I dealing with the situation could be a useful way. Sometimes just looking at the lighter side of things is good, because uh, is it really necessary to take something as the end of the world? Sometimes just using a little bit of humor and telling yourself, oh, you did terribly, but that's okay. Maybe next time I'll do better. So a little bit of lightheartedness, a little bit of humor sometimes could be a way to deal with a stressful situation. Another thing which I feel is very important, but we don't pay much attention to it, is savoring the moment. Actually, savoring what is happening around you. So, looking at something, appreciating it becomes important. You can also use another cognitive strategy, which is visualizing a happy place, visualizing things around you which makes you happy. When you're very stressed, one technique which you can use is maybe think about a place which is your happy place, and think about various sensations you feel when you're in that place. For example, if I'm imagining a beach, how do I feel when I'm sitting in a beach? What do I see around me? How does the feeling of the sand on my leg feel? So, imagining various things can also calm you down. Other behavioral strategies could be exercising. A lot of students say that playing something really helps them to feel better, or exercising can make you feel a lot less stressed. So if you're very stressed, take a break, just do something which is more physically rigorous. You will realize that that will make you feel better. Also, breathing. You will realize that when we are anxious, our breathing becomes shallower. Sometimes we hyperventilate, sometimes it's very shallow. So, just focusing your attention back on the breathing. A very easy strategy is something I call as 478. Just breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then let it out for 8 seconds. You will see that automatically your focus comes back to the present, and you don't end up worrying a lot. Any kind of relaxation strategy which you can use to feel better. If taking a warm bath makes you feel better, If doing something else makes you feel more relaxed, maybe you can think about those things to manage stress. Um, Also, focusing on positive emotions. I think there's a lot of focus on what makes us feel bad, but we hardly give importance to what makes us feel happy, what makes us feel grateful, what makes us feel calm. So maybe focusing on certain things during the day which makes us encounter these positive emotions as well could be a useful behavioral strategy. Then, of course, I can't emphasize enough on how important healthy diet and sleep is. Many times, students tend to, neglect sleep because they feel, oh, I'll study whole night long and I'll do well in my exam. But that's not a good strategy. And we know now, neuroscience also talks about how cramming never helps. If you're not getting enough sleep, you will not end up doing well in your studies because your brain needs rest to cognitively process things, memorize, focus. So if you're depriving yourself from sleep, you'll end up feeling a lot worse, right? Also, seeking help is a sign of strength. If we feel that I can deal with my problems on my own, great, you should. But after a point of time, if you feel even after using various kinds of strategies, it's not working, you're still feeling extremely overwhelmed, there's no harm in talking to somebody who can help you. It could be a friend. If your friend also feels that it's too much for them to take, maybe talking to a counselor could be a better idea. You can also think about scheduling a worry time. This really helps people with anxiety, where you schedule a time in the evening which is just for worrying. And you tell yourself throughout the day that I won't, if I have some worrying thoughts, I'll write down in my journal during that time. So scheduling a worry time sometimes help you to take your mind away from things which makes you anxious during the day. And of course, time management. Time management is extremely important, especially when you are in college, because there'll be so many deadlines, there'll be so many courses with different expectations that if you don't have a daily or a weekly schedule, you may feel slightly lost. So, what do you need to do? What needs to get done? Can you break down the tasks? Can you see by when you need to finish a task? Set up reminders, maybe to tell yourself that by this time I should finish this, or ask somebody to remind you. Could be useful techniques for managing time. I just wanted to end by giving you people some very simple survival tips for managing college. One is spend time developing and nurturing relationships, because a lot of studies, very interesting studies now, even longitudinal studies. There is one TED talk by a Harvard professor. So they have done a 75 years long longitudinal study to figure out what makes people happy. And what they have found is that social support seems to be the key factor in making people happy, keeping people happy. So it's not money, it's not fame. It's all about the quality of relationship you have around you. So if you neglect that, then you may end up feeling, stressed. You may not feel as happy as you want to be. So nurture relationships during your college days. Strive to maintain some balance. College is not just all about studies, it's also about wonderful opportunities, like various kinds of clubs, various kinds of forums. Take advantage of them. Don't neglect your studies, but do balance it with a lot of other things which you have in your life. Also, aim to keep your perspective. Look at the larger picture. So why are you here? Why are you doing this particular course? A small C or D in a particular assignment, maybe just one minor hitch in the long course of 4 years in engineering, right? So keep your perspective, think about the larger picture, think about your final goal in life, and don't get too stressed out just thinking about minor situations. Of course, you have to work on those hitches, but it shouldn't let you feel like you can't do anything about them at all. Also, I'm sure this is something you people will agree with. With the corona situation, all of us need to develop tolerance for ambiguity. Situations are difficult to classify. We are realizing that things are very, very uncertain and out of our control. So it's important to just realize that it's okay. I mean, it's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes. It's okay to feel stressed, provided we have enough resources to deal with them. So, just developing a tolerance for uncertainty could be one way. Also, cultivate optimism, like I said earlier. Optimism has been linked with success and happiness. Again, a rider here, I don't mean, telling yourself unrealistic things, but just telling yourself that if I try, I can do this. Or there are so many people around me who care for me, could be a good way of reminding yourself about the good things in life. So I just wanted to end by showing you people this last cartoon, which I really like. That it's okay. I mean, a lot of things may go terribly when you're in college, but they do remind you about the small, small things which are going right too, in some sense. So thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone. Um, Hi, Professor Dhananjay. Tina, are you there?
Good afternoon, students. If you have any questions, please free to ask, madam. Any questions? It was a wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll wait for the questions for 5 minutes, ma'am.
Sure, yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, hello, Professor Dhananjay. Yeah.
So, a lot of good responses we are getting. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Dear students, as madam is telling, she is open for questions. If you have any question to ask, all the questions will be answered by our eminent speaker for the day. Yeah. Can we have some questions? I think, yeah. Deepthi Gora is asking, what is the best way to deal with anxiety, ma'am?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Deepthi, for that question. Um, so it depends on, what kind of anxiety do you have. It's if it's a very general sort of an anxiety. Um, some general tips could be, maybe create ways to take care of yourself every day. So, can you create spaces? Like I was telling you, exercising could be a great way to deal with anxiety. Spending at least 5-10 minutes on some sort of a meditative practice is a good idea. And there are a lot of interesting apps nowadays, like there is Headspace, there is Calm, which you can use to just do 5 to 10 minutes of guided meditation. That could be a great way of dealing with your anxiety. Keeping a worrying time could be a very good way. Keeping a journal where you write down your thoughts, because when we think, the thoughts go round and round in our head, but when you actually write them down and you see them, you realize that you may be overthinking, right? So maybe just writing those things down in a journal could be a useful way of dealing with anxiety too. But if you have a specific form of anxiety you want to talk about, maybe you can mention that and I can give you some suggestions about that.
Another question on the screen is how to stop overthinking. The question is from Trupti.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Tripti. That's a very good question, because it's very, very common to constantly overthink. Overthink is a way of our body to also prepare for a situation, right? We sort of want to deal with the worst possible scenario, but if it goes beyond a particular threshold, then it becomes problematic. So there could be various ways in which you can stop yourself from overthinking. One could be, like I mentioned, when you feel extremely like you're overthinking, you catch yourself overthinking, just write them down. Or maybe create a flowchart, and you will see if you are unrealistically overthinking. Also engage, keep yourself productively engaged, because it's been seen that people overthink when they're idle. So what are the situations when you tend to overthink? What are the triggers? If you feel that particular times in the day you overthink, like at night, can you do something to calm yourself down? Can you listen to music? Can you do the visualization thing? So you can use some of those strategies to stop overthinking then.
Thank you so much for answering that. The next question comes from Ashwarya. She's asking about anger management, which seems to be seen quite often in this world. Yeah.
Yeah, Ashwarya, you're absolutely right. I mean, anger is something uh, which happens so immediately and makes us regret later on, that it's important to understand, what sometimes anger is because of other reasons. It could be because of frustration, it could be because of sadness, it could be because you're disappointed with someone. So maybe figuring out what is behind that anger is the first one. So being aware of, why am I getting angry? Does particular situations make me angry? Like many people, when they're hungry, they get angry, or when they feel frustrated, they get angry. So what triggers your anger is the first thing. Second is, when you feel angry, could you take some time and use these 3 R's? That is, retreat. Just go back. Don't immediately react. Retreat, rethink, and respond. So just use these 3 R's, that when you get very angry with somebody, just retreat, don't immediately respond. Think about the situation, respond when you feel calmer. You will feel that you're a lot more in control of the situation if you do that. So use those 3 R's. Another is, can you use different kinds of self-soothing strategies? Like, can you, when you're very angry and you don't want to talk to that person, or you don't know what to do with that situation, can you take out that anger in a pillow, for example? Or can you scratch a paper and throw it? Can you listen to a soothing music? Can you go for a bath which calms you down? So what are your self-soothing mechanisms which will help that anger to go down and maybe respond when you feel calmer, right? So some of these strategies may help you. I think, Nikhil, I've also answered your question in this.
Great. A lot of answers we are getting. Are we also allowed to ask some question, Anindita madam?
Yeah, of course. You are.
So my personal question to you is, when was the last time you got anger?
Oh, very recently. I think just yesterday. I have a toddler. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and she can really make me angry sometimes by her temper tantrums. So just yesterday, I got very angry.
Oh, great, great. Thank you so much. Another question I could see from Sumant. Sumant is asking how to focus on specific thing.
Sumant, if you can be more specific about your question, it will be useful.
Yeah, Sumant, we were not able to understand the question. If you can come back with, just elaborate so that we do understand the question.
Yeah. If you can write down what do you mean by specific things, Sumant, that will be useful.
Smita is asking, ma'am, how can we overcome from sudden reacting for small things? She's asking about, yeah, a reaction.
Right. Yeah. So, Smita, again, I think one way is like, I really ask everyone to do it, but not many people do it. But keeping a journal is very useful to see what are the situations where you suddenly react, what are the situations which really frustrates you. Because when you look back at the journal later on, you realize what triggered it. So, and then, like I said, you can also use those 3 R's to not react but respond, because it's very important to not react when you're feeling very like angry or very frustrated. Can you think about it a little bit more, distract yourself, soothe yourself, and then respond? uh, you shouldn't it shouldn't be that you don't respond at all if something is really making you angry and frustrated, but just take some more time and retreat, and this needs some practice. So you'll have to figure out what can help you to retreat, rethink, and then respond to particular situations.
Just to add to that, what personally I do when I get anger, anger comes because you feel uncomfortable. Whenever you have an expectation from the situation and the result is not so, then you feel frustrated or you get anger. So personally, what I have started doing is anything I chant like Om or something which gives me my own time, me time. And as Madam is telling, concentrate. I started concentrating or thinking about 3 hours. So it will give you some time to react later after understanding the fact. Atul has a question: is stress linked to anxiety and panic attacks?
Yes, Atul. Stress can definitely lead to anxiety and panic attacks. Many of the time, we don't realize what's happening, but if something is piling up again and again and again, suddenly it can create a situation where you feel extremely panicked or anxious, right? So, stress is definitely linked to anxiety and panic attacks.
Anindita ma'am, we have a beautiful question which I will tell, which I can see from Nikhil, which most of the students would like to get answer for. The question, yeah, this is the question.
Uh, how to concentrate while studying without distraction? Yes, Nikhil, absolutely. That's a very, very relevant question. So there are various things you can do. One is figuring out what distracts you. Like I know for me personally, keeping multiple tabs open on the laptop really distracts me, because if I'm, for example, when I'm not giving a talk and I'm listening to somebody talk, it's very, it's very lucrative to go to another tab, maybe check out something, maybe go to YouTube or do something else, right? So knowing what distracts you is the first step. Once you know what distracts you, for example, your phone notifications will distract you, right? So when you're doing your classes, can you reduce those distractions? Can you block particular sites for some time if you are very used to playing on the phone, and while listening to a lecture you're also doing something parallelly? Remember, we can't multitask. Like neuroscience now tells us that it's very difficult for our brain to focus on two things together. Basically, you're just switching from one thing to the other. So it's better to block those distractions, and you'll have to figure out your way. If you feel very addicted to your phone, can you keep away your phone when you're having classes? Can you not have those multiple tabs open in front of you? What other things distract you? Do socializing distract you? So can you create schedule in your timetable which is just for studies, when you keep away your phone, when you switch off notifications, when you just focus on your studies, right? So create pockets of time during the day when you study. Make sure that you identify what distracts you and you try to deal with it. Even apps like well-being and other apps there are in the phone can tell you how much time you have spent on something, and then you can use those apps to block. Like I have this app well-being which stops after a point. I can't browse WhatsApp because it just says 2 hours gone or 3 hours spent on WhatsApp. Now you can't access WhatsApp at all. So maybe using some of those apps or reminders could be useful, right, Nikhil?
Great, thank you. Hope Nikhil, your question is answered. Uh, Another question I could see from Impana. Impana asks, how to come out of negative thoughts?
Okay. Mhm. So, Impano, that's again a nice question. Negative thoughts, again, all of us have a negativity bias, right? We remember our failures more than our successes. In fact, your parents also will look at your report card and say, "Oh, F." They won't see A plus and A, right? So again, that's something needed for survival. But how do you come out of it? So you'll have to cultivate various things. One could be, that whenever you get negative thoughts, you try to distract yourself, think about something, which reframe it. Like I was telling you earlier, that if your negative thought is "I will do terribly," instead tell yourself, "I'll try my best and see what happens." If you're getting negative thoughts about something else, um, you'll have to maybe throughout the day also create avenues when you savor positive emotions also, right? So create situations when you are grateful. So one exercise which really helps is, at the end of the day, if you write three good things which happened during the day, that will help you balance the negative thoughts, because you're not looking at the good things which happen, you're just focusing on the bad things. So can you write down, be grateful of what has happened? Maybe somebody just hugged you and you really liked it. Writing about that will help you savor those positive emotions and balance the negative thoughts too, right? Also, like I was telling earlier, maybe just be mindful of when do these negative thoughts occur, right? So what triggers them? Are there specific times in the day when you feel very negative, or particular classes which make you feel very negative? So then you know how to deal with the trigger. If those situations are creating it, how do you change the situation, right?
Arpana Reddy has a question. What are the effects of overthinking?
Okay. So there are various effects. I mean, overthinking makes you catastrophize. Like you think about the worst possible situation, which may or may not happen. And when you think about the worst possible thing, of course, your body goes into that fight or flight response. So you get stressed, right? So overthinking, because of that, is a problem. You'll have to balance it by telling yourself that what I'm thinking, like I said, don't fuse your thoughts with reality. Reality may not be that bad. You're just thinking that it will be bad, right? So try to tell yourself there's no evidence for me thinking like this. Why should I think that the presentation will go bad? It may go well also, or it may go average. So you'll have to catch your overthinking and look for evidence for what you're thinking, not assume that they are real.
Great, great, superb. So a lot of questions are there. I could see a lot of questions, but the thing is finding the questions and posting it. A lot of questions are related to anger management, stress management. I'm sure the speaker has already spoken about that. So the answers of all those you can find in the show itself, in the videos, or whatever madam has spoken. So other than anger management, other than stress management, if any specific question is there, one question somebody was asking that was about which is the phone app, which is the app you're talking about, which can keep me away, which can keep me away from the phone. So madam was not talking about any app. Madam was talking about keep your phone away, or keep those notifications away which will distract you while studying. And madam was talking about there are certain apps which will tell you how much time you were away from all those. That can be a timer. Very, very simple answer to that. I would seek madam's advice on that. If anything, madam want to add.
No, I think you've covered it completely. I was talking about, how you should maybe keep away your phone if you're really addicted. Maybe create times when you check it, like give yourself, maybe tell yourself that I'll check it 3 times in a day and not more than that. I mean, whatever is realistic for you, right? That may not be too realistic for some people. Keep away your phone if you feel you just can't stop looking at it. Maybe give it to somebody and say, don't give me back the phone till this point of time. I was like Sir rightly mentioned, you can use certain apps to monitor how much time you're spending, and then it can block, certain social media sites like Facebook, WhatsApp, or Instagram. Those apps you can use. But for dealing with phone addiction, you will definitely have to start thinking about cutting down on the use, replacing it with something else. So, can you cultivate other hobbies which you have, and think about what can keep you engaged there?
Yeah, Deepthi has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deepthi has a question. Why do a person get tensed for a silly reason, and deal with that man?
Ah, Deepti, yes. So that could be because of various reasons. Like some of us are temperamentally maybe more sensitive, and temperamentally maybe the way we have been brought up, we may be more sensitive to certain things, and we end up thinking more about things. Um, and sorry, what was the question again? Tensed for silly reason and how to
Yeah,
deal
why
with
do
it.
people get
Okay.
tensed for small reason? So that is the
Yeah.
personality of the individual.
Yeah, it could be because of personality. It could be because of your upbringing. Maybe you have seen people around you who get tensed very easily, right? And you sort of model their behavior. It could be because of various things, but of course, you can deal with it if you think about what makes you worry. And then also, use this, cultivate these self care practices throughout, like meditation, exercise, eating healthy, taking out some time when you do something which you really like a hobby. So 1 hour to yourself. If you keep yourself productively engaged throughout the day, you will realize that these reasons may not, bother you so much.
Right, thank you. Another question from Ishwar is, ma'am, I'll be laughing for silly things, and all how to control that. What Ishwar, I will tell, if you remember what Mr. Amit Pandey was talking, there is a quota of laughter for everybody. Happiness. If you do not laugh now, in your old days, you'll have to go to park and laugh like this, ha 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 ha. So better, it is good that you laugh. So that is not at all a problem. Somebody is asking about overthinking, ma'am. How to cut down overthinking? Impana, once again. Would you like to take that question, ma'am?
Mm, I think I've already responded to
Yes, you have
that,
already
Impana.
answered.
I
True.
think, yeah, I have already responded to that.
So I don't see much questions. Okay, I could see one question. Again, it is related to anger management. Dear students, madam has already spoken about anger management. But okay, as the question has come to the at the last, I'll request for the final time, ma'am, something different to manage your anger or someone's anger.
Right. So I think one good way could be to look at what really causes that anger, right? Particular situations, people, or a particular kind of reaction from somebody. What makes you angry is the first thing. So, what triggers your anger? Uh, what kind of thoughts come to your head when you get angry, right? That's the second. Third is what soothes you, right? So thinking about what will help you feel better. Going away from the place, will that soothe you? Listening to somebody soothe you? Talking to somebody soothes you? Could be ways. And then figuring out, how to not immediately react, but take some time to respond to the situation maybe later, right? So maybe these three things will help you. Look at the trigger, look at what are the underlying thoughts behind the anger, and how do you soothe yourself? What kind of strategies will be useful? And there could be various kinds of strategies. Like I said, some could be behavioral, some could be cognitive. So behavioral is, maybe just going away from the situation or taking a bath or, holding something soft and fuzzy if you really like to do that, or listening to songs, talking to somebody. Cognitive strategies could be, where you tell yourself that it's okay, I feel angry now, but it's okay, this will pass. Reframe it. Think about positive things. Think about how did you deal with your anger last time? Maybe you use some useful strategy then. Can you use it again now to deal with your anger? Right? So use those different kinds of cognitive and behavioral strategies which I mentioned. I can also share the slides, Dhananjay, if you want, and
I'll do that.
maybe we can
We
take
will
a
do that.
look at
With your
those.
permission, we'll do that. The final question of the day. Before I come to Maruti sir, the final question of the day is exam stress management. How do we do that
Uh,
exam?
Right.
So
That's
one
a very, very
answer
relevant
from
question.
me before speaker speaks, experts speak. According to me, in a layman language, it will be start working in advance for exam. You'll not have stress. So cut down that stress. But over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. You should be prepared well before time. That's the main mantra, that you should be prepared well before time. Second is use certain kinds of relaxation strategies, like I was saying, maybe do a quick deep breathing. Focusing back on breathing always helps you to feel calmer. You can also try visualization, like I said, visualize your happy space, think about it, get enough food, don't miss your meals, be hydrated, don't forget to drink water, don't lose your sleep, because that's not going to help you. You will feel more stressed out, right? So don't cram at the last moment. Prepare well before time, get enough sleep, eat well, drink well, use certain kinds of relaxation strategies. If you still feel extremely stressed out, and you can talk to your faculty, ask them how to prepare. If that also doesn't work, maybe you should talk to a professional. If you get very exam anxiety, is very common, by the way. Almost 18% of college students have faced that, and all of us have faced it at some point in our lives, right? So there is no harm in seeking help. If you feel extremely, like, you feel paralyzing anxiety, you can't write. Another tip could be, when you look at the exam sheet and you feel you can't answer one question, just skip it. Do the ones which are easier first and come back to the harder ones last. Because if you start working on the hard one first, you will lose confidence to even do the easier ones later, right? So start with the easy ones and come back to the hard ones later. That could also be one way to deal with the anxiety.
Great, you nailed it. One more point, if I have to add to that, what I would suggest to youngsters, stress management in the examination will go well if you stop looking at your friends. The problem comes when you cannot write and you are seeing others writing. If everybody's paper is going bad, you feel relaxed. If everybody's paper is going good, you feel relaxed. When you go to movie, you feel relaxed. So why can't you have those things in the examination hall? Stop seeing others, and as madam is telling, start from the questions which you can solve first. uh, Sujana is asking, okay, how do we recollect what we have read? That is something to talk about. Okay, I don't know how answer that. READ, that is read. Okay, how to recollect what we have read?
So there are very interesting, nice, useful learning strategies which you can use, Sujana. Like how. So first thing is to maybe take good notes, right? You can create visual maps sometimes to summarize things. So once you are done with the chapter, maybe summarize it. You can put it down in a flow chart, or you can create mind maps. Nowadays, there are nice, interesting websites also which helps you in creating these mind maps about different concepts. So explore those strategies online, create those maps. They'll help you connect to the to different things. One common thing which I would suggest is, usually, if you remember things, if you rehearse something, you won't remember it. What you have to do is connect what you are learning new with some a concept which you have learned earlier. So, if you can give examples, if you can illustrate the concept, relate it to your daily life, then you end up remembering them better. But if you just try to remember things and memorize things, you won't be able to recall them, right? So, don't use rote rehearsal, try to use elaborative rehearsal. Connect it with what you already know, give examples. These will definitely help you. Use mind maps, visualization, visual maps in front of you. Those will help you remember things which you have already read.
Great, ma'am. What a wonderful session this was. A lot of questions, nice interaction, a lot of questions answered by the expert in the way students wanted that to be answered. Great. With this, we come to the end of this session. May I formally invite our own Yeah, your coordinator and head of Department of Physics, and one of the senior most professor from East Faculty of Engineering and Technology, none other than Dr. G. Maruti, sir. Sir, formally invite you for vote of thanks.
Thank you,
And before
Dhananjay
vote
sir.
of thanks, sir, if you want to ask some question to Madam,
Yeah,
your personally,
yeah,
if you have personal
yes,
question, please do ask.
yeah, correct. In fact, stress is a common psychological phenomena that everybody will come across at one or the other stage. Say generally, I'll get stressed out when I see a long traffic jams on ring road. So, so like how every day, yeah, everybody will come across such kind of phenomena. So, in fact, uh, stress to some extent is also a reflection of our responsibility. So, when we see the study, the efficiency in our profession will increase us with increase in our stress if it is within the limit. So, as Madam mentioned in the beginning, that graph is a inverted bell-shaped graph. So, the efficiency increases with increase in our stress. But if it go beyond that peak and if it comes down again, the efficiency decreases with the increase in stress. So if it crosses that peak, then we say it is a anxiety, okay, and all those things. But if it is a healthy one, that's fine. In fact, even for many reasons, even without okay our notice, we come across okay this kind of anxiety moments. We have read even in the media, newspapers, and all. Even a very successful celebrities also come across. The best example is Deepika Padukone. So just few years back, she too come across. Though she is such a successful model, okay, even her father is a very okay renowned a, 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 a badminton player. Okay, in spite of coming from such a background, and she herself was a very successful artist, but still she also okay come across that kind of a problem. But immediately she took a medical help and she could come out and she openly told that, see, I have come across such kind of problems. So then I think she has opened one website to okay answer all these kind of questions. So that is one great thing. See, that shows that anybody, any successful person can okay also come across this kind of problem. And also very recently we have seen the founder okay of this coffee day, Mr. Siddharth, he committed suicide. He could not manage the stress. See, it is not your success that okay that matters. How you manage the situation and how you manage the stress is at most important, right? Siddharth, in spite of having some thousands of crores of wealth and a father-in-law who is a very okay renowned former chief minister of Karnataka. He had a political influence. He had a reputation. He was a very successful businessman. Okay, he had a wealth. Okay, everything he had, right? But in spite of that, he committed suicide. The only reason is he could not understand himself that he is okay under stress. Okay, so therefore, stress management is very important. As per statistics, okay, every 1 out of 4 will be having this kind of problem. So therefore, there is a you immediately whenever you come across that kind of problem, you can take a medical help. Okay, and you can definitely come out from this. Uh, Deepika Padukone is the best example in our country because all of us are very familiar with that. Okay, very successful model and successful artist, right? So with this, I think the students will also definitely come across this kind of problems. For that, there are many reasons. There may be a stresses, that is expectation from the society, expectation from the parents, expectations from the siblings, from the okay relatives. So then definitely we also okay students get stressed out, right? So, but we should learn to manage the okay stresses. In the previous discussions with many resource persons, we have learned that we should live for ourselves. We should not okay compare the success of others to our success. We should take their success only as a role models. Okay, we should not compare. We have to live our life, and they will live their own life. Okay. So I think Madam has elaboratedly explained it in a very scientific manner. I just spoke in a very layman's language, but on behalf of our college management and my students, I'm very, very thankful to you, Madam, for your a precious time and for answering most of the questions raised by our students. I hope with the slides what you are sharing to Dhananjay sir in turn will share it to our students, and whenever they have a free time, they can go through it. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Over to you, Dhananjay sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. A lot of stress management things could be handled by our Maruti sir also. I was not knowing about that. So first year students, you are always welcome. Whenever you have a problem, get mentored by our own Maruti sir. In case some consultation is required from Dr. Anindita Bhattacharya, Madam
Yeah.
will always be there for EPCT students. That is my personal request to Madam. Hope Madam will accept that.
Sure, Mr. Dhananjay.
So wishing all of you a very good day. We come to the end of the session. Thanks, dear students and faculty members who all are there. Thank you so much, Anandita Madam, Maruti sir, for being there in the show. Wish you
Thank
all
you,
the
sir.
best. Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, one and also.
Thanks.